live. Yeah. Just the title for that. Yes. And then what's. No.
Just turned 17 last week. And I'm
Wow.
like, phew, done with that.
Wow. It's even better when they say, guess what? I'm having a baby. You're going to be a grandparent.
Okay, no, stop.
That one was just a little bit of a shocker for me.
Our kids have dogs right now, so we'll stick
Yeah,
with
hey,
that.
a lot better. A lot better.
Do adoption. Katie, we were doing. Do you want to run up and grab no finder?
Just say.
Do you want to run up and grab no finder?
I'll try to chase them down.
Yeah,
Once
exactly.
in a while, someone will say, change your order or something like that. You can't add just something like that. You slowing down and all that?
Just, we had issues with, or just. and just
Can you
issues
show me a
with
pen?
the symbol that we launched. And he left the other day.
The only one that looks like a bad.
And just.
Mike took the other one.
You, but
That work?
still.
I think it's an erase.
Oh,
And it will be until hopefully the end of the week.
Okay.
That's a macro one.
Then I can fish it.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Anyone catching anything yet? I haven't heard of this stuff.
It's getting there though.
Well, nice.
Yeah.
Well, it was nice this weekend.
Ever since last fall.
There was a lot hotter there than it was here.
It's probably warmed up. It seems pretty normal now.
We were on the beach Sunday, most of that.
You did?
Well, we went swimming all day on the beach.
Yeah, I heard something like that too. I don't know. Well, you know, I guess Marchand was in the 90s anyway. She was in Ellsworth. I think.
No, it's
I mean, it's not that far inland.
for us to get to the warrants before we start. Okay. Should I be out there on a skateboard?
Get you started.
That's okay.
We're getting good fire in 3 days. We open drying it out. So, which is the most good, industrial one. $80 a day. Within a good week. I'll try it out.
Yeah, you can go. I'm by the clock.
Yeah.
Well, it's my job.
Yeah. That library wants everyone to be literate. All right. That's it. Okay, 5:01. Call the meeting to order at 5:01. Roll call, Selectman Howdy Goodwin, Mike Mansalilli, Mackenzie Jewett, Kevin Buck, myself, Jamie Thurlow, Town Manager Chris Saunders, Town Clerk Katie Danduran, Bookkeeper Jan Sprague, and press and members of the public.
Don't forget John.
Oh, and John Myers, sorry. Code enforcer, John Myers. All right. Adoption of agenda. Does anybody like to make any changes to the agenda? And public hearings. We have a public hearing for the Seal Cove Auto Museum liquor license. Request of the Seal Cove Auto Museum for the state special event liquor license for its murder mystery dinner. Would you like to?
Open the public hearing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I
just,
will open the public hearing at 5:03.
So the museum, this is our 4th annual murder mystery dinner, and takes place from 6 to 9:30 on the grounds of the museum inside the building. It is written by local playwrights, Ron and Rob Lawton, and acted by local volunteers. It's just a great evening, sort of a fundraiser for the museum, and a great way for us to make friends and invite new people in and do something really fun. So as part of that, we do serve drinks and a full plated dinner. Tickets are on sale.
Sounds like fun.
Thank you. Should I close it on that one? and then
just
start?
ask if there's any more comments.
Yeah. Is there any more comments?
Okay, then close the hearing. There isn't.
Okay, I'll close the hearing at 5:04. And, okay.
Okay. Why don't I make a motion to approve the request of the Seal Cove Auto Museum for a state special event liquor license for its murder mystery dinner fundraiser to be held Sunday, July 28th, 2019, from 6 p.m. till, it says 9. Is it 9:30, Randy?
Oh, my God.
I can, whatever you want, I can make
It
the,
says 9 on the ad, it's Patrick's.
okay, till 9:00 p.m. at the museum.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the request to Seal Cove Auto Museum for a state special event liquor license for its murder mystery dinner fundraiser to be held on Sunday, July 28th, 2019, from 6 to 9 p.m. at the museum. Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, now we have Seal Cove Auto Museum liquor license. Request for the Seal Cove Auto Museum for a state special liquor license for its barbecue. Same thing, I'm sure.
Yeah, so it's
Open,
car show
open,
barbecue.
open the public hearing.
Okay,
again.
yeah, I will open the public hearing at 5:05.
Just make it official that way.
So we have a car show barbecue that's gonna be taking place on the grounds of the museum in August, where we're hoping to get about 60 cars to come in and exhibit on the lawn. We've got a music festival taking place in the afternoon and evening with 3 different bands. And so we'll be, again, selling beverages as part of the fundraising for the museum. And that one goes to 9 as well.
That's good. Any more comments? I will close the public hearing at 5:06.
I'll make a motion to approve the Seal Cove Auto Museum's request for a liquor license for the barbecue fundraiser to be held on Saturday, August 24th, 2019, from 10 to 9 at the museum.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the request of the Seal Cove Auto Museum for a state special event liquor license for its barbecue fundraiser to be held Saturday, August 24th, 2019, from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. at the museum. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Yep. Yes, thank you. Next is approval of warrants.
Minutes.
Minutes, yeah.
Okay. Approval of minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of July 1st, 2019.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of Monday, July 1st, 2019. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Abstain.
Approval of warrants.
I make a motion to approve warrant from fiscal year 19, warrant number 143. Oh, well, you're supposed to read them first. Sorry about that. I'm jumping the gun. Change seats.
Yeah, we have warrants, 143, this is from fiscal year 19. Warrant 143 for $7,310.43. Warrant 144 for $23,309.14. Warrant 145 for $7,378.62. Then from fiscal year 20, we have warrant 2, which is $10,295.06. Warrant 3, $9,671.23. Warrant 4 is $11,039.06. Warrant 5 is $203,085.05. Warrant 6, $73,135. Warrant 7 is $10,255.71. Warrant 8, $3,634.62.
I'll try it now.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve warrants 143 through 145 for fiscal year 19 and warrants 2 through 8 on fiscal year 20.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve warrants from fiscal year 19, 143 through 145, and fiscal year 20, warrants 2 through 8. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Sorry about that.
No. Sorry.
Old habits.
All right, financial reports. Chris.
All right. So although these are 100% of fiscal year 19, I want to stress that these numbers are strictly preliminary. The audit will be taking place in early October, and so nothing is final until the audit, which we are still getting a few bills in that relate to work or purchases from FY19. So those will be added in as we go along. But some highlights from here. So in June, we collected $67,761 in property taxes. This is a little higher than previous month because we sent out notices to delinquent taxpayers, so that prompts a lot of people to come in. We still do have $178,110 in delinquent FY19 taxes. And so I suspect that in a few months, we'll be having a discussion about taxable properties. And I just want to put that number in your mind as you're thinking about what to do and how you want to proceed with those. That's the only thing I want to highlight in revenues. Were there any questions on revenues before I move on to expenses? On expenses, in the administrative cost center, we came in $56,000 under budget, which is obviously great news. The mostly routine expenses last month, I did know that because that cost center was going to come in so far under budget, I did authorize the conversion of the upstairs lighting to LED. So you can see that expense of $4,230 was charged to the town office building line. And obviously will result in energy savings down the road. In the solid waste cost center, overall, that cost center did end up exceeding the budget by $9,000. So a good chunk of that was due to the landfill remediation, water treatment system maintenance, but also EMR expenses were a little bit higher than what was budgeted. But overall, because, overall, I'm not concerned about this because, as we'll talk about in a few minutes, I can just jump there right now, the total budget for the year came in about $170,000 under budget, and revenues came in $33,000 over budget, which really results in an overall surplus of approximately $200,000. So there's a lot of things that you can do with $200,000. And we'll be having that conversation down the road. It's not worth having right now just because you don't have the audit and that can change. But I am pleased about that, that outcome. And the library fund, since that was one of the ones that I was tracking closely because it was right up bumping against its budget, it did end up coming in slightly under budget for the year. Yeah, those are my highlights on expenses. Any questions? Okay, and then the last area is the general ledger. These are our special revenue funds, like the Wharf Fund, the Harbor Fund, and the Seal Co Fund. I'll just speak briefly about each of those. So the Wharf Fund had a surplus of approximately $18,000 at the end of the year. So I think that I'm expecting that that'll bring the total fund balance there up to $62,000. That'll be very important when we get to funding the wharf reconstruction. The Harbor Fund, which has been running a deficit for the last several years, had a surplus of $19,000 this year. So wiping out that $17,000 deficit results in a slightly positive, couple $1,000 fund balance, but it's in the black, which is great news. And then the Seal Co Fund had a small fund balance coming in of approximately $6,700. However, it did run an $1,800 deficit this year, which I'm expecting to result in a fund balance of about $4,800. This is just something for you to track in the years going forward. If it continues to run a deficit, then we might have to look at changing those fees down there to make sure it's self-sustaining. And that's my report. Any other questions I can answer?
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
I'll make a motion to accept the July 2018 through June 2019 financial report.
Second.
Been moved to accept the July 2018 through June 2019 financial reports. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? All right. Regular business. The dangerous building that we discussed at our last meeting, located on 19 Shore Road. And we have the owner here, I believe. Of the,
I'm going to recuse myself. It's directly across the road from me.
Oh, it's okay with me.
Yep.
You don't forget to open.
What's it?
All right, Kevin has recused himself from this, being a property owner nearby, and I will open the hearing at 5:14.
Well, yeah, some time ago, in the spring, I received a letter from you guys saying that the building needed to be, it was composting over there, needs to go. There's no doubt about that. I called Gott's, and they sent the guy went over, took a look at it. And then I met with Mr. Larson, and we were discussing a building permit, and what I could do there. He told me what I could do there, and he had wanted, we discussed, I was in agreement with all of that, but he had wanted a professional sketch of the proposed project. And he said that if I had a building permit, I had a year to remove the building. But that actually doesn't make it not hazardous. I think it needs to go now. I'd be glad to call Gottsmart and take it away. If that's, I understood that if I had a building permit, I'd have a year to take it down, but that's still not right. It's falling apart. I don't want anybody to get hurt either.
Yeah, I think that was our main concern, that just kids or something, if they ever get it in and around there.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought about offering it for campers kindling. but-
Yeah.
Right, it was too close to the fire lines.
Yeah.
The burn down, so
Yeah.
I'll just have, they'll come, I think they can do it today or something. It's pretty
Yeah.
quick. I'll call him tomorrow then.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
What's that?
I said, thank you.
Well, no, it's, these things get away from you.
Yeah. Right. Anything you'd like to add, John, to that, or does that sound good to you?
No, as long as he's willing to remove the building and have it properly disposed of, that's the goal here.
Yep.
Well, I'm assuming the guy's gonna take it down and haul it to the dump, right?
Oh, yeah, usually they'll take an excavator and just load it up and.
Building that size, probably a couple hours will be gone.
Yeah. No, it will.
It took them all day to take down Bar Harbor Library the other day, and that,
You look around like the house they lived in's only a couple of years behind that. They all compost during the year.
So when is this going to occur?
I'll call them tomorrow. I'll call the guy tomorrow.
Okay, so I'm looking at a date, a definitive date here.
I think it's,
So,
Well, I got your card from last time, I'll call you as soon as I talk to him.
okay,
And if that's good for you, then
that's good for me.
if it's not, I'll get somebody else. Okay, is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be here tomorrow.
Okay.
Am
Yep, that's good, thank you.
You about to close the hearing before you.
Oh, yeah, is there any other comments? I will close the hearing at 5:17.
Just need a motion to sign do you need two motions?
Well, it's up to you. What, now that you've had this, if you're happy with his assurance,
Mhm.
you could take no action and just expect that it get done.
Normally what would take place is the select board would enter into a consent agreement. So he's gonna call me tomorrow.
Mhm.
I'll write up a consent agreement, have him sign it, give it to you to sign, so we have a date definitive of
Yeah.
when the building.
Yeah.
I,
That's a good.
well, yeah, I think if he doesn't respond, the next meeting we'll hear about it though, too. I mean, kind of like a handshake deal, I think that,
This is just a formality.
right, but
I would
I got a
do
feeling
something,
before,
right.
I got a feeling before that it'll be down.
Well, that's my question. If it's down before the next meeting, then all of this is unnecessary.
Right, we're
correct?
just wasting,
If GOTS for some reason can't do it because of
That's
the
what I was
timeframe, Howdy, can you do it?
No, they need a bigger excavator. Reach down in there and
Yeah,
do
it's a
that.
long reach from the
Yeah,
road.
no.
I mean, you could, it doesn't mean that you're right.
Yeah.
Little tiny machine.
What if GOTS can't get there as quickly as we'd like GOTS? I mean, what if GOTS is a month out?
I mean, I say 120 days, that's, a lot of towns, that's pretty fair, I would think.
But if he's gonna call you tomorrow, then you guys,
I'm looking at more like 30 days.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And I'm sure they'll
You
get
saw one of those pictures.
Yeah, it's scary there.
With the cinder block and the kindling there.
Is it posted with no trespassing signs?
No,
That's one thing that I would,
this
that's,
is a for sale sign.
So do we need to sign the findings in order?
It sounds like you're not going to be proceeding with a
I
formal
would,
order.
I would follow the paperwork,
Mhm.
sign the findings in order.
Okay.
I'll have a consent agreement for you. if it's not gone by the next meeting. So if anything should occur,
So we've got it if we need it, basically.
we're closing the loop.
That makes sense.
Okay, then I'll make a motion to find that the building located on 19 Shore Road, tax map 12, lot 75, is considered a dangerous building pursuant to Title 17, Section 2851, subsection 2A.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to find that the building located at 19 Shore Road, tax map 12, lot 75, is a dangerous building pursuant to the Title 17, Section 2851, subsection 2-A. Any discussion? All those in favor? Kevin?
Well, hang on,
Wait,
hang
hold
on.
Oh, okay,
hang on,
I'm sorry.
Then I'll make a motion to sign the dangerous buildings finding and order dated July 15th, 2019.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to sign the dangerous buildings finding and order dated July 15th, 2019. Any discussion? All those in favor?
All right, can you give me a minute or so? We're gonna actually need a few minutes here, because I have to fill out this form, and then you all have to sign it, and the reason Jan is here is because she has to notarize it.
Mhm.
And so it'll just take me a few minutes to complete that. Sorry.
Good.
Go ahead, Lawrence, just have the rental. I'll check it. On Saturday. Saturday.
No, that's good. He agreed to do it right off anyway.
There's still
I had a kid, I walked around with it yesterday. The kid was a teenager. He was scared to death just walking around it.
I mean, I charged him security for it.
It ain't much.
My grandfather said it used to be some steep getting down there, and they used to have to go along the driveway that
I
went down
bet.
into the knees.
Well, it wasn't in front of the house, was it?
Yeah, it
Or-
was, yeah, it was right there.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty good. Just walking down there is
Yeah.
a bit of a challenge.
Good. Well, keep up on right up to you, guy. Yeah. Good guy.
I'd have to see if I can catch the show. I get front row seat. Come back, grab a beer, we can watch.
Yeah.
I think you'll have to be quick though.
Yeah.
I think he's right. I think 2 hours, that's gonna be nothing.
Yeah, it's just to reach from the road would be the biggest thing, 'cause you're gonna have to reach, set up on the edge of the road. I would think.
Yeah, you could
Tiny,
actually,
that's tiny though.
Yeah.
I've torn, I mean, like I said, it's not super efficient, but I've torn down places that size of my little machine.
Oh, yeah. I just mean getting down in there.
You never,
Well, I think
never
you-
get down there.
I think, no, I think you could actually, if you want, if you're looking at it up to the right,
No.
you could get in there close
It's not
enough.
rail.
If I knew what to do, I'd just redone with my machine.
So it's the,
Would have taken a little longer.
I got one.
That would be fun.
There was one they wrecked on Furnace Point Road, up Furnace Point Road last summer, and it's like, I was there and Marge went up, she wanted to, someone was looking at doors and he said, go up and get it. Got there and it's gone, like 2 days later, nothing.
Really?
Yeah. It was a pretty big place. Open up the chute down there.
I really would, when Barber went down quick, they,
I heard,
when
I
they tore
was
it
told,
down,
interesting,
all
I
the
was thinking about
insulation,
shutting down as
it was
much
just,
as illegal.
it's like loud insulation all over the street. How did they get?
I'm surprised.
You look across the cemetery, across the street, dust everywhere. But there's nothing they could do, it was in the walls.
There's no insulation here.
30 days, we said?
No, I don't think so.
There's walls
30
there.
days?
Yes.
I believe.
You probably get an ocean view through the walls.
You can get an ocean view from the other side of the road looking through it.
So pass this one down and then sign the others.
Okay.
Packet. And you can read what I wrote on the front. I just copied the wording from the statute.
I was hoping John would make it into a parking lot.
So, okay.
And Jan, do you want to get started
May I steal your pen?
with the
That would
numbers?
be fast.
Yep, so start with Jamie and you work your way down. 'cause-
Actually, remember to bring one too. I'm not signing it. No. That's very official, Jan. This is a new requirement.
Yeah, it's kind of falling apart, isn't it?
Is she still gonna notarize it, right?
Camera.
And then Jan, looks like the order is right there. That is the notarized itself. Yep. If you don't mind, do you have the seal down here? Yeah.
Just this?
Yep, just that. Nope, the rest of them are unrelated.
Okay, one more time.
Sorry.
It worked for a second.
I've already got a note to restock the pens.
Well, I bring one, but that one just didn't cooperate with me.
Jan, do you need anything else from these guys? You got all the information? Go for it.
Thank you.
And slip that in the red folder.
Nice folder.
All right,
Thanks, guys.
moving on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. All right, item 8B. It's the discussion of the possible donation of the Pacific Hall to the town of Tremont. Would you like to give us some information on that, Chris?
Sure. Morgan Churchman approached me a few months ago saying that this was something that was on his radar that he was interested in doing. And I just said, give me the word when you want me to put it on an agenda. And we discussed and tonight worked. And then he called earlier today to say he wasn't going to be able to make it tonight.
No.
So unfortunately, he's not here. But it's a fairly straightforward, he just does not want to be, I think, the responsible party anymore for this property, but he likes what it is. I think he's put a lot of work into making sure that building is a nice maintained structure, and I can attest to that. It's been a great space for, temporary space for the library, and he wants the town to take it over. As I wrote in the memo, there's advantages and disadvantages to that. On the advantages side, it's preserving and owning a historic space. And it could definitely be functional for various town events. And then disadvantages is we'd have to assume the costs of the upkeep of the building, heating it obviously throughout the winter, and then any other repairs that would need to happen. And then just the cost of taking any building that's privately owned and off the tax rolls. So there's a disadvantage there. He did say no matter what, even if he doesn't donate it to the town, he was gonna find another nonprofit to take it, so it sounds like no matter what, it's coming off the tax rolls, but obviously we don't know. And after when I sent out the memo for tonight's meeting, Mike Hayes of the library board did respond and say that the library had some interest, but I don't know what it is, and Mike's not here tonight, obviously, to speak to what level interest there is out there. And the last idea, this is just something that I thought of because of the economic development interviews that I've had, is that Andrew Simon has told me that their barn is too small for them. And it's a performance space. I know there's been some difficulties in the past with the Barn Arts Collective in the town, and so we need to be highly cognizant of that. But I just wanted to throw that out there, and I await your direction if you have any requests for me to contact people to get more information. I will. Yeah.
How about the Historical Society? Maybe, probably not, but.
I haven't reached out to them, but
Yeah,
they might.
no.
You haven't got any kind of a ballpark with the annual maintenance costs or anything? I know we just put a lot of money into that.
You know, I mean, I could look at what the library bills were for their heating
Yeah.
bills, and
But
that,
they didn't really use the performance space much, did they?
well, they used that room. I mean, they had books stored in there.
Yeah.
So they were
But that's-
heating that room.
Okay.
And they did use it for a couple of, events.
No, it's a really nice space.
Mhm.
He did a great job redoing it.
But there's very limited parking.
It is,
Yeah,
there's not much
Like
parking.
ambulance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is-
and I agree.
Is there room for more parking around if you go?
I looked at the property lines and I asked Morgan that question, and it's a really tight, small lot.
It's pretty much what's there. is
Yeah,
what's-
exactly.
Some sort of community center or something, maybe?
I think it's worth looking into. Be nice to get a little more information.
Do you have a preference for whether the town takes it on versus a local group like the Historical Society, or?
It'd be nice if the town had it.
Yeah.
We're getting offered to us.
Right.
How often do we get something offered to us? Not very often.
Well, I think too, it might be nice if we were gonna end up, it might be worth looking into anyway. I'd really like to see what it would cost to own it.
Okay.
And just what the parking availability is and all that myself. It sounds like a very good offer.
Yeah.
It's just if it's something we could actually use.
I can work up a cost analysis based on the heating costs and then just. a
You know,
ballpark
just
figure.
something,
Just a
yeah.
guess,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's wooden siding that's painted,
Mhm.
which, it's, like I say, it's in nice shape now, but down the road, there'll be
I know
significant
they
maintenance costs.
totally rebuilt the place about 12, 14 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's in great shape.
They went right through it, right from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they even had the steeple off and everything.
Yeah. And-
Rebuilt
Yeah, and Morgan was also wanted me to know that when they did redo it, they kept all the water in one location, so it's just like that bathroom.
Mhm.
And so if you wanted to shut it down for the winter, you could just keep the bathroom and leave the rest of it unheated, and you'd be okay. So that would be a way to cut down on those costs.
I would tend to, my feelings would be, I would tend to look towards it if the town did acquire it as running it out for events more than a long-term lease or something like that. To me, that would make more sense. Otherwise, we just become a landlord. And I mean, if we could use it for town functions, it would make a lot of sense.
I would agree. I mean, if someone came to us and they said they wanted to pay X amount for a night or something, I think that's beneficial. Or if like they want to have like a community movie night or something, I could see something like that happening.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of uses for it,
Yeah.
possibly.
No, I think there's a lot of
Can the
things.
electricity be put on with like all of our town buildings?
Yes.
That would also help.
I agree, if he wants to give it to us, then I think.
Yay.
And ask her-
I
and ask
I think
her
we should say
what-
thank you
Yeah,
very much.
thank
and
you
look
very
into-
much,
yeah,
right.
and,
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
And I-
just do some.
I put this also in the memo, but just as a note here. I do believe the town meeting would have to vote to accept the building. You as the select board don't have the authority to accept it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Don't they approve donations? Maybe it's only cash donations. I think that's one
There
of
is
the.
there's
yeah.
a monetary donations warrants
Okay.
that you have the right
Yeah.
to spend them, but this is obviously not
Okay.
monetary.
Okay.
know, I'm sure there's 100 different uses that we could think of and brainstorm, and hard telling 10 years from now what there might be for a use for it.
I mean,
So,
I can't even see where it's not, it would be something we wouldn't want to do.
And if it's gonna get taken off the tax rolls anyways, then we
It might
as
as
well.
well be ours.
Might as well be ours, yeah.
And we know it stays in the community.
Fun birthday parties.
I got married there. What?
Yeah.
Which one?
Second.
It's like,
Come on, Archie, come on.
Hey, come on, that's a question everyone gets.
See, I
these
know,
days.
right? It's fine. Look, I've been to your weddings too.
I know.
That's right.
Fair question.
It was tough.
Do we need a motion?
Well, it sounds like you were earlier discussing wanting an analysis of what the annual costs would be. Do you want me to write that up?
I think that's
Yeah, I make a motion to
good.
request the town manager to look into the potential costs and liabilities of owning the Pacific Hall building at tax map 6, lot 5.
Second.
all right. There's been a motion moved and seconded to request the town manager to look into the costs and liabilities regarding the possible acquisition of the property located at tax map 6, lot 5. Any discussion?
I just have a question. Is he looking to do this sooner than later?
Well, I
Oh, we
told-
have to wait till.
I told him the town meeting
Okay. Yeah.
would have to approve it anyway, so.
Okay.
Any other? All those in favor? Okay. Street light LED conversion. Discussion and possible action to award the contract for street light LED conversion. You know, we're at our next step of what to do. What do we? Is everybody ready to make a decision on that, or do you want any more information, or?
I'm ready to go.
I'm ready to go too. He was great.
No, I've got no problem. Awarding the contract to
Great
them.
job, and
I make a motion to award the street light LED conversion to affinity lighting, LED lighting.
Second.
it has been moved and seconded to award the street light LED conversion to infinity LED lighting. Any discussion? All those in favor? Would you like a second motion on that too? or-
I think there's a discussion to be
Yeah,
had
I was
about
gonna
how to
say.
pay for it.
Yeah.
Okay. What have you come up with for ideas?
Well,
Well-
I put three ideas into the memo.
Yeah.
So you've got, like I just talked about the financial reports. I'm guessing you have about $200,000 left over. So you could encumber 30 of that after the audit comes back and allocate that to the streetlight LED conversion and pay for it all in one go, which is great.
I think that's a great way to go.
But just to touch on the other two, you could finance it, you could take out a loan for $30,000. I agree, I don't really see the logic behind that, but you could. And then the last one is just to include it in the FY21 budget. And that's also perfectly reasonable.
I make a motion to authorize the town manager to plan to uncover the funds from the fiscal year 19 surplus to fiscal year 20 for streetlight LED, for the streetlight LED conversion project. I think I
Second.
worded that more or less correctly.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to authorize the town manager to plan to encumber the surplus funds from 19 to fiscal year 20. Is that how you worded it?
Yeah.
All right, for the LED streetlight conversion project. Any discussion? All those in favor? That economic development strategy. Chris. would you like to-
All right, you requested this about a year ago, and I've been meeting with quite a few folks, including all five of you, to hear some input and just discuss what the economic development picture looks like for Tremont in the years ahead. My approach was through these interviews to identify some common themes of what people discuss and then try to draw from those themes some recommendations for you, some like short-term recommendations, and then just things for you to consider if you want to make some more substantial changes. And so just, I mean, I don't want to go through this, it's about 17 pages, I think, of actual report, and then 30, and then another 17 or 18 pages or so of the notes from those interviews. So I won't go through all of that, but I will just highlight the 6 areas that themes that emerged. So I talked with quite a few people about the public water and sewer, talked about waterfront access, affordable housing, road improvements, bike paths, and financial incentives to attract businesses. And there's different levels of support for each of those things. So for example, public water and sewer, it came up in 6 interviews, and some people were strongly in favor of it, and some people were very reluctant to express support, and other people were in between. For something like that, there's obviously a major consequence down the road if you built a public water supply and sewer supply or sewer outflow in the Flatiron area. You would enable development to happen much more densely at that location. You would allow like the McCaffrey and Hutchins property to become much more economically viable. But in a huge number of the interviews that I had, people really expressed a strong feeling about Tremont being a quiet, the quiet side. And I think there would be some pushback against doing anything to really change that. And so in that situation, I'm not recommending that you pursue that right now. I just don't think the public will is there. Things like road improvements, people were very supportive of. And road improvements definitely relate to economic development in terms of businesses being able to get their receive the resources that they need to run their business, to export lobsters, for example. And I sort of tied that one in with bike paths a little bit, because I did have a few people who really said, you've got a major potential for tourism if you have really nice bike paths. There's not really that opportunity here on the quiet side, nothing like the carriage roads or the Park Loop Road as exists over on Bar Harbor, Mount Desert area. And so I sort of tied those together. If you're looking at major improvements along the state road, if you built a parallel shared use path alongside of it, you cut down on the overall cost of that expense, and it'll feel silly at the beginning because you're going to have these like short segments, but over time, eventually you have a much longer path that people can enjoy. And in a way, we've really already laid the groundwork for that with the sidewalk that already exists along Tremont Road and is being built this summer. So it's, we're already moving in that direction. So then jumping to the specific recommendations, I really only make 2 ones that I'm fully supporting. So the first one is a simple change to the zoning ordinance, or I should not call it the land use ordinance, that currently home occupations have to go before the planning board for approval. And in most other communities, John and I talked about this a good amount, that's not how it works. Usually it's just the code enforcement officer, and he has the same, the checklist to make sure it fits all the requirements for the zone and for that kind of thing. And so the idea is just make it easier for people to start home occupation, don't make them go before the planning board. And so I think that would be a simple tweak that can be made that would make people's lives easier. And then the second one just relates to roads. We've had a lot of conversations about roads, but there really isn't, as far as I understand it, a clear list of the order that you want to do the roads. in terms of for reconstruction, and how, if at all, the state road factors into that. So, you know, we talked about some of the major local roads that need to be reconstructed, but you could also use those same dollars and do a municipal partnership initiative with MDOT and reconstruct a segment of Tremont BOS or Harvard Drive. So I think it would be nice to have that as a reference document. So when people ask, you know, what's the roads plan, that we have something definitive to give them.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thanks.
Good.
What do you think about?
Yeah.
It's the only thing that I see.
You know, the more vacant places I see sitting there, like the big lumberyard lot up there, the town water and sewer starts becoming a little more feasible than I thought a few years ago. It would be nice to see something. I just read a soil report on that, and that lot's very restricted without public sewer and water.
I found, you know, these are all good topics, obviously. My only question was on, you said there would have to be universal buy-in on the water and sewer. And I'm pretty sure that if the water and sewer goes by a lot, once it's in, that they're required to hook it up in a lot of towns, look into it.
Sir, I just meant politically speaking.
Oh, politically speaking, but yeah,
And I'd say near universal buy-in, obviously, you know.
because, I mean, if they have the utility there, they're supposed to,
Oh, yeah, no, of course, if we would have all the legal framework in place. That
Right.
if we built a water system, we would require people to use that water system. You couldn't opt out of that.
and like, I'm just wondering as much as we're spending on water treatments right now, even if we didn't do sewer, if we said, would the water be beneficial with the school, with the town office here? Something we might want to think of long-term.
Mhm.
I do know that Southwest Harbor is not even close to capacity over there.
Mhm.
And they could easily support this town and probably another one. It might just be something worth, even if we don't do it, just to say, how much would it cost to get it here?
That's a really expensive question to answer.
It's a study, but
Just
it's
answering the
expensive.
question is expensive.
Well, I know we got
But
some,
you don't get there unless you ask.
Yep.
You know,
we had some preliminary numbers a few years ago, and it was pretty staggering.
Also, Southwest Harbor's water doesn't usually pass standards.
it is passing students now. I
It
think.
is now?
I think so.
Okay, when I had the Ridge House, it didn't.
But just, I mean, for all of us that it doesn't benefit, the people that it will benefit, I think, is what we have to look at. And seems like there's quite a volume of them, especially in this area.
Mhm.
And not only are they all in this area with the contaminated water, but we also have our main downtown district, as you call it, our town office, you know, our school. And it's more densely populated in this area. So I think if someone were to tie into it, they're more likely to tie in here than say if you started at the other end of Seal Cove. And fire protection, of course. We don't really, I mean, what do we have close by for water?
Reed's Pond, that's what they usually use.
Yeah, it's
There's
not,
one near my house too,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
like a mud puddle.
yeah, and we don't have
Seal Cove.
great sources really.
Has
Yeah.
one.
No, I think we had that discussion, 2-3 years ago, probably, something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And I remember bringing up the idea too of like Seal Cove Pond, because that used to be the,
Water
It was a
color.
some sort of,
Water
a-
district.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have little picture postcards of it.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
A thing you can do is you can put advisory warrant articles on your town meeting warrant that aren't committing you to any particular action. It's just trying to get citizen input on a question. And so you can write a question that says, would you support the town pursuing water and sewer, a water and sewer system? Now, there's a potential political cost to that because you would be putting that out there and people would see it and they might assume that you are doing that. And that would just have to be a conversation. But you could get input that way, find out if people are supportive.
I think that's a fair thing to do. I mean, there might be more concerned people than we know. Only 5 of us.
Yeah.
So I agree, polling people's a good way. I mean, it doesn't commit us to anything, but it at least says, wow, there's either less or there's more people concerned than we thought.
I just wouldn't want any confusion like Chris said.
Exactly.
That's the only thing I would be skeptical of.
I don't think there would be.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not.
Yeah.
It's a pretty simple question.
I think one of the things we should have some kind of a handle on before we even go that far is a ballpark per capita price tag.
Yeah.
Because
I
that's
mean,
definitely
yeah,
gonna sway people.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds great if it's free, but if you gotta pay $50,000 a household, it probably,
But if we're asking them before we spend the money, I think we should ask them anyway. If we're gonna spend $20,000 or $30,000 to have an engineer do a study.
But the first thing I'm gonna ask is if that came to me, I'd be like, how much? Like, what is this gonna do to tax bills, or what is this gonna do? I mean, people are gonna wanna guess, not a concrete, I mean, I know you can't give them a concrete.
I think a ballpark would be
I
really nice to
guess.
have.
Also, what is it gonna give you monthly charge?
Right, so then you get a water and sewer bill on
That's
top of
right.
your tax bill.
And that's
on
what,
top
that's a
of-
question for this study, this feasibility study, however you wanna, whatever you wanna call it, is, could this entire system be paid for by the ratepayers? Or would it have to be partially offset by the general fund? I can't answer that without a pretty in-depth study that we would have to pay someone to do.
There's no inexpensive way about doing the study. It's just,
But
no, I
it's-
understand.
Maybe we start with seeing if people are on board. It's coming eventually.
I can't imagine what the price tag would be to do the whole town. And if you got part of the town paying water bill that's not getting the water, I can't see that's gonna go over
That's not
well
gonna be
either.
popular.
So I can see a lot of problems with
Yeah,
it.
I can tell you a lot of these earthwork contractors that put water line in, they can tell you about how much it's gonna cost per foot. A lot of them have figured it right down, so they could give you at least a rough idea and say, for a mile of road, it's gonna be X amount. That's how they figure a lot of the bigger water line.
Is that someplace where it's sandy or someplace on Mount Desert Island where it's all granite?
They have, if they're working for the town of Bar Harbor, they have to put a bid in.
Yeah.
And the town says they're gonna do a mile of water line, they have to, that's their risk, not ours.
Well, usually there's some kind of a contingency on there for ledge.
Ledge
too,
removal,
most of
but-
the time. So it's not a hard number.
It's close.
I know, I think if we ask people, I think it's a good idea. I just know that the second question is gonna be how much? And also, then they're gonna, well, that would be $10 million. And, there'll be a lot of guesses. And if we had just some sort of a ballpark number to put in front of people and say, would you be interested if it was in this area, between two numbers?
and we're not talking about the entire town, we're just talking about this,
Get it from
right?
Long Hill,
Question.
Long Hill to
Yeah.
here is what I was thinking,
And-
if we did do it.
I mean, you'll see in here, I have a couple different, you've got Stuart and Lisa Branch were two people who were very in favor of this.
Mhm.
And so that, it assumes that it would go down to at least seafood catch.
Yeah.
You also have the Tremont School, and this is just me thinking logically, I think you'd really want to tie in the
Yeah.
school.
No,
Because
Yeah.
that's great volume,
Yeah.
which is really important for the system. And then I think you've got I'm not an expert, but you might have the density in Bernard to support it.
I would
You've
think.
got a lot of homes that are close together there. And so that's 3 big chunks of the town of Tremont. But I don't know if you want to include Bernard, do you want to take it, do you want to talk about beyond Bernard? You tell me.
And I think there's enough households in Bernard to, and the density is there. This whole area, like to the ferry terminal and this area in Bernard side, definitely. But it's just, I think my biggest question is where do you pull it from? That would be Southwest, do we,
That to me seems like the
Cost
By far the
wise,
most-
the only, yeah.
they've already got, we're just paying for the line and for whatever fee they're gonna charge us.
Yeah.
If they agree to give us the same fee that they're taxpayers are paying. I'm sure they would because they're usually in the negative as far as making money.
But then I'm just afraid of if you renegotiate a contract every 5 years and then
Maybe it's longer than that.
yeah, well, you know what I mean? If you don't know what the price is gonna be in 10 years, the fee is gonna be.
And the water tastes gross.
I can tell you the water in Tremont's not much better.
Depends where you are.
The well driller said it's some of the worst water in Hancock counties in Tremont.
It can be beside, one well beside the other, seems like it's
It's
totally
totally
different around here.
I still think the biggest question is going to be price tag.
Yeah.
I mean, and
And how many
I
years
think
can
it's going to be a big one. So,
Mm.
how much can we get them to pay, the state pitching towards it?
There's definitely grant funding out there. There's a lot of it is, I should say grants, a lot of it's in the form of low interest loans, which does save the town money. It's below market rate interest, but it's not free money. There are state agencies that, there is a state agency that exists to support municipalities through this process, and they have the experts who can really, lay out the options as far as grants and loans. But all it takes is the political will to get that process started. And I can reach out to them and just ask, like, what do you need as a catalyst to get it going?
if I remember right, they had a ballpark price tag of at least maybe it's getting it to the town line or getting it to X
Southwest
point.
Harding.
Yes, this was probably, it was several years ago now, probably within the last 5 years, something like that. Maybe that's what you were talking about. How far does it go now? Does anyone know?
Goes to top of Long Hill, I believe, and it serves that Hillcrest Circle.
Okay, so it's a pretty good haul to get here.
And would they be willing to pick up, for them, it might be worth them picking up the share from Long Hill to the line or something.
Yeah, they'd pick up a few more people, not huge numbers.
Pick up a few more people
Yeah.
and they're sharing, maybe they're cost sharing with us on it. The line's right there, it'd be a lot nicer for us.
What do you think, Howdy? Not to put you on the spot.
I don't know, I think it's gonna be a lot of money.
It certainly would add some value to the homes around here. So.
I know. My only hesitation, like I said, is just relying on another town. It's great to work together, but that's my only hesitation.
Long Pond's not gonna run out.
No, I mean, having someone else's fees and stuff kind of held it
Well,
up.
and what we were talking about too, there's a lot of really good water and good situations in town.
Mhm.
This area itself is, the Flatiron area is probably the worst example of what's going on, but a lot of the town's doing fine. So, I mean, you gotta kind of question how much money's worth. Serious.
Not that I'm supposed to butt into this conversation, but, right now, they're operating as a district over there, so it's actually not a town entity.
Isn't it quasi?
Well, it's not municipal.
Yeah, so they've still got something to do with it.
Representative is the town
Yeah.
manager,
Okay,
but otherwise the town is never.
okay.
Yeah, thanks. No, it's good to know.
I don't think it'd be a bad idea to have Chris make a phone call and see what they thought of the idea and, all that. I mean, I don't see that could hurt.
Start there.
Start there, see what they say, yeah, I agree.
You mean with Southwest Harbor?
Yeah, or the water district, yeah. I make a motion to request the town manager to contact Southwest Harbor Water Company. I believe that's the name now, still, right, Sarah?
What's that?
Southwest Harbor Water Company, is that what they,
The, water and sewer district.
okay, Southwest Harbor Water and Sewer District. And, just with preliminary questions of possibility of connecting with them.
Second.
All right, it has been moved and seconded to request the town manager to contact Southwest Harbor Water and Sewer District and just talk a little bit about possibilities for water, maybe coming into the town of Tremont. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Could I just request a motion to accept the economic development report?
That's what it thinks.
I make a motion to, I guess, to accept the town manager's report on economic development strategy.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to accept the town manager's report of the economic development strategy. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay.
Yeah, good work, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a lot
Yeah,
of work.
yeah.
It's good to meet a lot of those folks.
Yeah.
Didn't otherwise have reason to meet them.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of good feedback, a lot of good input in that. That's great. All right, town manager's report.
Okay, so major emphasis of the last 2 weeks. I have scheduled the Dodge Point Road tree removal project. That'll be starting next Monday. And we're checking on it regularly. I'm sure all of you will as well. There were a lot of complaints, not this past weekend, but the weekend before, about the bridge approaches going at the bridge project. So I had a number of phone calls and meetings with CPM and MDOT about grading those bridge approaches. They have made sure that all of their understanding with GOTS is up to date, and GOTS is supposed to be responsible for it on nights and weekends. But going forward, if GOTS is not, for any reason, is not able to regrade it and it's in really bad shape, Howdy has graciously said that he's on standby. And so I appreciate that happening.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, why does that get potholed up so fast? I mean, I've never seen.
It only does it when it rains.
Yeah, I know. It rains and all of a sudden it's a minefield.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any road that gets that bad that quickly.
That's probably the worst
Yeah.
road that rains ever.
And it's recycle, isn't it? It looks like it's packed real hard
Yeah.
underneath. I mean, it looks like it's done.
Every time it rains.
And then just today, I attended a meeting with the engineer and other stakeholders who are working on the Seal Cove fish ladder nature like fish passage design. So we're expecting that design will be ready in October, November of this year, and we'll move on from there to figure out what the next step is. So a lot of minor things going on around town. I notified Greg Johnston that we are interested in getting head of the harbor surveyed this year. I requested draft contracts from the Hancock County Sheriff's and Southwest Harbor for law enforcement. I've arranged the gym floor refurbishment, so that is scheduled on July 27th through August 6th. I got Rosie Madera onboarded as health officer, so that is official.
Too bad, Jamie. Lost your job.
Yeah, I know.
Did advertise the surplus property sale, and those bids are due back on August 23rd. There was an issue with the solar array, so unfortunately, it looks like somebody, we don't know who, just turned off the array in early May, and so it wasn't generating any power from then until through June, until early July. So that was unfortunate. They've now put a locking mechanism on the switch, so that's not possible to do anymore, I'm told. But as a result, our electric bills are going to be slightly higher because of that. I set the speed radar out on Lighthouse Road and conducted a speed study and sent the information to MDOT to request the reduction in the speed limit. So we'll see what they say to that. Because of the issues, I briefly discussed them in my last manager's report at the Hancock County Planning Commission. They normally handle the winter salt bid for towns in our area, and then it leverages the larger purchasing power of a lot of the local municipalities. However, they don't really have any staff right now, so they haven't done that. I did receive an offer from MDOT. They do an annual salt bid for a much larger group, and so I submitted the town's numbers for that. It's always up to the select board whether to accept that low bid, so you still have that choice. But I'm hopeful that we'll get a good price on salt for that reason. Been working with folks over at Acadia National Park to figure out how the management of the boards at the Seal Cove Fishway might be changing and did have a resident request to talk about water levels and who's managing those boards. And so we'll see if, I'm just keeping an eye on that to see if the water level changes. That they had a staff member indicating that was retired, and so there's some concern that the water level might be changing because that person's no longer monitoring it. So we're keeping an eye on it. I drafted a letter about the new recycling rules that are going to be going into all of the tax bills. I set up the new heating oil agreement with no frills. Scheduled roadside mowing, which will be happening towards the end of August. The excavator, many of you probably saw it, or some of you probably saw that it was delivered today. And Jimmy has already gotten started on the south end of Cape Road. There's a ditch already dug on the north side right at the beginning there. So head out there and take a look at what's going on. Looks good. I've been, I think, annoying folks over at MDOT to fill potholes on Tremont Road and address other long list of concerns that we have. I had a meeting with Justin Van Dongen over at Southwest Harbor, and John. It looks like John is going to become, this is still tentative, but will be becoming the code enforcement officer over in Southwest Harbor on Mondays and Fridays. So I think that's good for them. It's good for us because he's around a little bit more often. Office staff busy with new fiscal year activities. The assessors are working hard to finish all of their spring work before the tax commitment, which will be next week. John has been very busy with the planning board and the board of appeals related to the appeals regarding the Kitty Wilderness project. The appeals board will be meeting on this Thursday for the first time in 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah, it's been
A long time. And then Jan did the bank reconciliation, and then just it's been very busy. It's that time of year. Public Works completed a huge amount of work on Hodgson Road. A lot of ditching, replaced a couple culverts, did a driveway culvert, 2 driveway culverts. Looks really good there. They removed a spruce tree in Hillrest, cutting brush on Kellytown, fixing a couple washouts on the Cape Road. As I mentioned, the excavator was delivered today, and so Jimmy's been doing ditching out on Cape Road. The trucks are also getting their annual maintenance. They picked up a load of culverts from Gotts, mowing cemeteries, fixing potholes, that kind of thing. Our harbor master, Justin, has been resolving a lot of mooring issues, disposing of old traps. You might have noticed that pile has gotten a lot smaller in recent weeks, which is great. He's also been helping out Public Works with their road work, dealing with a lot of issues, parking issues at the wharf. He responded to the sailboat that went aground just over the line in Southwest Harbor. And then lots of cleaning up at the dock and the routine stuff for this time of year. So some priorities over the next couple weeks. We'll be committing taxes next Wednesday. I'll be working on the harbor ordinance amendment related to limited purpose aquaculture, working on drafting an investment policy. I'll be trying to prepare both of the select board packets for the meetings that will occur while I am out on paternity. I'll be attending the League of Towns meeting, monitoring the 2 big projects, the Dodge Point Road project and the gym floor refurbishment over the next few weeks. And then at some point, a random day in the next few weeks, I will be out for sorting for 2 weeks. So we'll see when that is.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Next meeting date.
I make a motion to confirm the date of the next meeting for Monday, August 5th, 2019 at 5:00 PM at the town office.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to confirm the date of the next meeting for Monday, August 5th, 2019 at 5 PM at the town office. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
And motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Thank you. Yep.
You're getting better at this.
Yeah.
You gotta keep the damn guy sitting beside you from not turning around the meeting. It's amazing how much of that becomes automatic after a while.
Well, it's just new stuff.
Yeah.
Opening and closing.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it's good to do that, just so it's on record that you actually had it. I mean, no, the Sealco Auto Museum liquor license would ever really be, but it's good to,
No, but it's good to have it.
yeah. And it seems almost kind of foolish a lot of times when you're doing it.
Good night.
Good night.
But, that way it's official. It's all by the book.
Yes, sir.
That's Chris.
The painting's crooked.
I was going there earlier if I had the I was interested in hearing that there was a specific call.
Mhm. Yeah.
So how did that come?
What?
Select board asked me to analyze what the
18.
costs would be, the annual costs of doing that.
Prior to tonight, this.
Yeah, I was almost gonna move them, but they'd be fine with it. I'll be down in a minute.
Yes.
Because I heard that years ago, we offered it, the town declined.
Maybe
I
years
don't
ago we
remember
did,
that.
I don't know.
I don't remember that happening.
Well, I guess before any of us were born, maybe.
No, maybe.
Is Mr. Churchman a very elderly guy? Really?
He's older, but he's not.
saying,
Yeah.
I can't keep on doing this forever, kind of thing.
I always say he's younger than you and older than me.
It's pretty,
Okay, so you've just been asked to do this analysis of the costs?
Yep. Town meeting has to approve it.
Yeah, of course. I just wondered what the terms, whether there was any specifics about what it was.
Yeah.
So just as simple as that.
as far as I know.
Of the town acquiring it?
Yeah, it's just,
Places in town to hold this, right?
yeah, the only concern I personally have is what it's gonna cost us to maintain it, and if we are gonna have a use for it. But it's a beautiful building. He did a fantastic job. It's in really nice
Yeah, he
condition.
spent all the upfront money.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like someone's offering us a war cost. I mean,
Right.
There was a few, I can't remember how many years ago, but they did a lot of work. Looks good.
Well, this picture is wonderful now because it's down here, but it's crooked as hell.